Hello, it's Debbie with Stitching here. Now we've gotten our next to the last block for SweetPea's Halloween Haunted House. I know this might be a little shaky. I am holding the tripod in my hand. I don't know what to do anymore. It's block 11. It looks like, to me, a mad scientist lab. Gonna be fun. I've got everything all ready over here. So we're gonna get set up at the sewing machine. I went back to the tripod in hopes that I could show you a little bit more of what was going on. I can move the tripod, but the wiry arm I can't. So let's get going. As usual, our first step is to stitch down this batting. Now let's get this trimmed out. Set up in a way that it's actually going to take me forever to make this video. One phone, so, one stand, one everything. I am just readjusting everything, each movement, so that you can get the whole thing. See, this is what comes from watching those stupid videos that are telling you everything you're doing wrong, huh? How to do a video. People will like it or something like that. I don't even remember. Doesn't matter. I'm just trying to make it where it's a little easier to watch. I mean, the one before last, the sound was atrocious. I had tried a different sound, earbuds. Actually, I tried different. They were big old headphones and sound canceling, blah blah blah. And I thought, these might work out good. Maybe they'll block out the sound of the sewing machine a little more. So, yeah, it was awful. I don't know what they were doing. All right, we're all trimmed out. Now I will reset up the camera for the sewing machine. You're so lucky. It's just going to be an instant for you. We've got our background fabric, our border fabric, in place, ready to be stitched down. Now what I did was go into the list, wherever I have set it. I still had to make up a list for myself. I have too hard a time finding, following more drawn out instructions. My brain doesn't work as fast as it once did. It doesn't process information like others either. So I break it down into the steps. If you have looked at my other videos, you've probably seen me flash the paper in front of you. I went through and I looked at batting border, wall placement, and then it's a crack in the wall. And the crack in the wall is going to be my steel gray. So I am using steel gray all through up to that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors down into one. Let's get it started. I don't cut out my center, so I'm going to move right on to my wall placement. Now we're going to do the tack down for the wall. We need to trim out the wall. I'm going to try doing it with my arms around the camera. After the wall tack down and trim is the crack in the wall. The next thing we're going to be doing will be the mouse down in the corner. Now, my portal, I was going to use that silver gray on, so I'm using that steel gray for the mouse also. You may notice the camera angle seems to be a little different. I kept thumping the tripod, so I went back to the arm. I instead moved it farther away and then zoomed in, and I'm hoping this will work. We're going to give it a shot. Let's do the mouse. Now, in the last video, I turned it on the television. I mean, this was, like the next day or something, and discovered that I had left a whole section where I was adjusting the camera in the video at the very beginning. So I'm sure many of you left. So hopefully, because while that mouse was stitching out, I was readjusting this. I'm trying to get it to point, more downward, and I can't seem to get the camera up in there. I just don't have an arm long enough. Anyhow, now it's going to do the eyes. I'm going to, wherever I set my scissors, all this rigmarole, I'm going to use the glow in the dark. I've got, the yellow's already on the stand. I'm using the yellow. Now it's going to do that bookcase, its leg, one little leg. Now it's going to do the legs for the, I'm calling it a portal, for the portal. Now, as with all the other floors, we're going to do a straight across stitch, fold it over, and then sew around the edges. Now we trim around the edge of the floor. I've put in my glow-in-the-dark thread because I want my puddles to glow. After it does the puddles, it's going to do the broom stitch, the satin stitch all around the edge of the room. Now it's going to do the little antennae, and I'm doing them in the same color. I'm sorry, in silver. Well, I thought it looked kind of like aluminum. You know, it's a real pale gray, so I'm going to go with that. Now the next bit is just the little balls at the top of the antennae. It's like, oh, I guess it was the 60s. That's when I was a child in the 60s. And that was our science fiction stuff. The mad scientist stuff always had these antennae sticking up with red balls at the end. So I'm doing it. And yes, we did have a color TV. My father bought one. I remember the day it came. It was after my mother had died, but before he remarried. So I must have been about 4. And He had his chair pulled up in the middle of the living room. My mother, when she died, she was waiting for delivery of a lazy boy chair she had bought him for Christmas. She died right before Christmas. And he had that chair for a very long time. But he pulled it forward so he could get the perfect view while they installed it. And it used to be, for the television, they had this wand that they went across the screen to get the colors. I don't know what it did. I'm sitting on his leg waiting for it. And the first thing we watched was a Tigers baseball game. He was an avid fan right up till he died. And now we're going to do the balls on the top of the antennae. The next thing we're going to do is our bookcase. We're going to do the placement and then the tack down stitch, trim it out, and it's going to do spider webs. I went ahead and put my spider web thread in because it won't matter about the placement and the tack down thread. They'll be covered with the satin stitch later on. So that rolls 3 changes down to 1. Believe it or not, that is a piece of an old work shirt of my husband's. I cut out the parts that weren't worn out, the elbows were worn, that kind of thing, and used it on something else I needed gray for. And I still had some of it left. Now we'll trim around this. Now it'll do the spider webs. Now it's going to do the shelf edges. And I'll put in a brown for that. The next step is the satin stitch around this. Now it's not actually a bookcase. It's like those utility cabinets kind of a thing. And I did use gray for the background. But the portal has all this aluminum, I guess you want to call it, the light gray around it. And so I didn't want to go with another gray. So I decided it was going to have brown edges. And that was that. And I had no intentions of using brown on the bottom, but when it came time to put the fabric down, I realized I had misplaced that particular fabric and I couldn't even remember what it was I had used. It's been sitting here waiting. I had a camera coming. I had to buy a refrigerator, and I threw a camera in the cart at the same time. Not a very expensive one. Unfortunately, it took really crappy pictures because I tested it first. So all this has been sitting here waiting, and now I'm trying to rush and get it done because it's almost Monday. I've been posting it on Monday. Plus, this is the last 2 of them. And I didn't want to turn around and the following Monday, do a short video just showing it all put together. So I've got to get all these done and the whole thing together so that I can at least show a picture of it with the second block, because we got 2 blocks in the last week and I'm just not organized enough, I guess. But anyhow, wow, long story short, or short story, very, very long. I'm using brown. Now it's just going to do the placement for the brain case. I have this very stiff fabric. It's actually 3 layers of white. I kept folding it over and putting one under it, between the layers, trying to get it to be dense enough. It won't lay down. Now it'll do the tack down and we'll trim. Had to grab the really heavy duty ones. It's very thick. Those little squeezer, what are they called? They're squeeze trimmers. They're thread snips. That's what they're actually called when you do a search for them. But there's this one YouTuber. She has a very popular embroidery site. Anyhow, she calls them squizzers. That's what she calls them, squizzers. That might be what the name of them is in that country. I don't know. I did a search on squizzers and it did pull up the big ones that they use in aquariums. But I started using these years ago. It was recommended to me because I had such a hard time with the curved scissors. I just couldn't get it close enough to get the threads cut short. And at that time, the big rage was the Havels, Havel''S, Havels. I don't pronounce well, so I'll spell it. Thread snips, which I have put mine away, are these. And they're very lightweight. And the tips are very thin, so it can get in real close. I love them. I've had them for 20 years at least. Well, no, that's a lie. I've had them for 15 years at least. But these I got online. They're thicker and heavier duty. And I just found them on Amazon. They came two to the set, but one pair is straight and one pair is curved to use to get up close for those tight areas. Works great. Now it's going to do the satin stitch around the glass case. It's going to stitch the brainstem, and you could use the same color as the brain. I don't think that would actually matter. It probably is the same color. I didn't look it up or anything. They had red, and I thought, I'm going to use red for the detail work on the brain. I'm going to use red for that also, just to kind of tie it in. Now it's going to stitch out the brain. I'm using my orange glow in the dark. It's a very pale peachy color. I thought it would work. Our next step is the details. All those squiggly lines in the brain. I've gone back to red. Now it's going to do the bottom of this case, and I'm going to use teals just because I wanted a little color in there. There are 3 candles up here in the corner. I'm going to use teal again. There. Okay, I have down step 29 is the liquid in the beaker. That should be on the first shelf here. In this case is where we can bring in some little tiny bits of color. If you didn't use it in the background, I didn't. I plan on this being in one of the attic rooms. After the liquid in the beaker is the liquid in the test tube that is laying down and dripping. Our next step is going to do all of the outside edges of all the little glass containers, the test tubes, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to use white. I made it sound like there was so much, but my machine says 1 minute, so, you know, not much at all. Our next step is going to be to stitch the test tube rack. The next thing it's going to do, there's like a creature in the jar and it's on a leg or a stand, and I'm going to go ahead and use the black for that. Now it's going to do the creature in the jar. We're going to start working on the books on the shelf now. It's going to start with the second book. I'm going to leave that blue in, just as easy to use it again. If you don't want to keep changing colors, you could do the next one the same color because it's going to jump to the fourth book. It's going to do the last book on the shelf, the fifth book. It's jumping to the third book. Going to fill in that space right there. You do not have to do like I did and change every color. I'm just trying to add a little color to mine without it being too loud. Our last book is just leaning. We are on the countdown. I never did say how many steps there were because steps in threads changes can be two different things. And I keep telling you that, and then you go, oh my God, there's that many changes. But in reality, there isn't unless you're going to use a different thread every single step. And I don't think anybody's going to do that. But we only have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 color changes left, technically. Because what it's going to do now is the little side arms, you know, it would be the brackets for the machine, which I'm going to use a little bit darker gray for. Then I'll do the placement for the portal, the tack down for the portal. We'll trim, we'll do the drippy up at the top, so that's a color change. And then we'll change it to whatever color we're going to do on the outline of the portal, which I was going to go back to the silver. I just want the arm, I want it noticeable that that's a different part of the machine, so I'm going with a darker gray here. Now it's going to do the placement for the portal. I see a thread. We don't want that stitched in. Unfortunately, I can't see that thread. I want to get as many of the eyeballs in as possible, and I know I'm not going to get the big one. So I want to, sorry, I'm bumping you, I'm sure. So I want to get as much of the others as possible. Only Halloween fabric I have. And I don't have, I have little pieces of it. Now we're doing the drip. I'm glad I did use the red. That really pops on that fabric. I wanted it to show up well, and come on. The only thing we have left now is the satin trim on the portal, and I'm going back to the silver real pale gray. Oh, the camera. I just wanted to apologize. I had bumped the camera and not looked at it and realized it. So I don't actually know if you were viewing off to the side for the whole placement of this. So I'm just interrupting this stitch out to apologize. And now we're going back. And that's it. Last one. I'm going to move you over to the other side so you can see it out of the hoop. So this was our block 11 next to the last block. It's all done. I kind of like it. I think it turned out cute. It's going to be in my attic with the coffin on one side and the locked door on the other is what I had anticipated doing. Things sometimes change. I may change my mind before I actually get it together. The next video I put up will be of the final block, and I'm hoping to have at the end of that at least a picture of all the blocks sewn together for the wall hanging. It may not be completely finished, but I am going to get it at least a picture of them sewn together so you'll get the general idea. I do appreciate you joining me for this. It's been a lot of fun. Bye-bye. See you in the next one.